So, welcome to all, and sorry for the delay, but this is the first lecture, and we wanted to wait all the participants. So, welcome to everybody to the Copernicus Green Revolution for Sustainable Development. And what this course is about? Well, we all know that our planet is undergoing very extraordinary climate change, and the Green Deal is the Commission reply to this challenge. And the Copernicus program is part of a European strategy for sustainable development in Europe towards a more resilient society. Today and in the next months, we will learn that Copernicus is the European Union's Earth observation program looking at our planet and its environment. And every day, Copernicus collects a huge amount of global data from ground stations, satellites, airborne and seaborne systems, and transforms this data into information to support public authorities, international organizations, and the industry in improving the quality of life for all the European citizens. But the information provided by Copernicus can be used by end users as well for a wide range of applications and in different subject areas. And this includes, for example, urban area management, sustainable development and network protection, regional and local planning, agriculture, forestry and fisheries, health, civil protection, infrastructures, transport and mobility, and cultural heritage and tourism. But the goal, which is the goal of this doctoral course? It is to provide an overview of the Copernicus program, its relationship with the European space economy, some basic backgrounds of applied Earth observation and geoinformation, a summary of Copernicus core services supported by the European Commission and European agencies, and some applications in different domains. And since the development of a more resilient society is a very complex subject, this course is designed with a transdisciplinary approach and is addressed to a public of non-experts on Earth observation and geoinformation. And this is unlike traditional PhD courses, which are mainly addressed to specific doctoral students. This course is not. So, the final goal of the Copernicus Green Revolution for Sustainable Development is to achieve consciousness of the space data potentialities in the downstream sector and to enhance the uptake of the Copernicus data, its services, and the value-added products. Which are the content of this course? This course is organized in 10 lectures from today to the 20th of June. And today, our guest speaker, Professor Bernardo Bernardinis, will give us a talk about Copernicus as the European paradigm for smart, sustainable, and inclusive growth. I am very sorry for being online, but unfortunately there are no physical classrooms still available at Politecnico di Milano, so we don't have a classroom. And I have a very important note for all the external students. You should have both done the enrollment as PhD candidates, as external PhD candidate, and both registration to Politecnico di Milano's online services. Be aware that all the teaching materials will be hosted on Weebip, which is the official platform of Politecnico di Milano, and all the information about the course will be given through Weebip. So stay tuned and check Weebip. And if you cannot access Weebip, please let me know as soon as possible, because all the information will be provided using this platform. So before starting, I want to introduce my co-host, Professor Maria Brovelli. We will see her during the lectures. And so, Maria, the stage is yours. Please introduce yourself and also our guest speaker.
Thank you. Thank you, Marco. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to see a so great success of this course. And as Professor Gianninetto, my colleague, said before, uh, the success of this course, the fact that it's attended by so many people, is the main reason why we were not able of finding a so big classroom. Also because you know that now we have to respect partially the social distancing, and so is uh, you are many than expected because generally the PhD courses are not so large. On the opposite, um, there are almost 60 people attending or interested in this course, which is a great success in my opinion. So it means that also this course is very timely. Um, so thank you for being here. Thank you for your interest. We hope that you will enjoy the course as we designed it. As Professor Gianinetto said, we will have some meetings discussing different topics because this is considered a very general course about and basic course about Copernicus. So you will have the flavor of many different topics related to this important point. But today we start with a bang because it's a I'm very, very pleased and honored of having here Professor De Bernardinis, because he's really one of the father of Copernicus. So it is really a great honor and pleasure of having him here. And you have to consider yourself very, very lucky of having the possibility of attending this lesson. But as you don't know, Professor Bernardinis, I want just to tell you something about him. So first of all, Professor De Bernardini was in charge of the presidency of ISPRA, which is the Italian National Institute for Environmental Protection and Research. And he was in charge of that till June 2017. But previously, he had been the deputy head of the Italian Civil Protection Department for the technical operations for almost 10 years. So he has a lot of experience. In the beginning, he studied fluid mechanics at the Imperial College of London, yeah, where he took his PhD. And therefore, he was also a university professor for over 20 years. After that, and during that time, he had the possibility of developing a professional research and academic experience in Earth observation, environmental protection, environmental prevention, monitoring, and assessment at national and international level. But besides that, he acted as a chair or member of numerous national and international committee and scientific groups, and he represented Italy in the MES Copernicus Committee and User Forum till 2019. In this very, very long period, he helped the European Commission in designing and launching the first GMES operational services as the chair of the implementation group of what is now the Copernicus Emergency Management Service. He also participated in implementing and coordinating the Copernicus National User Forum, composed by national Copernicus user community representations under the leadership of the presidency of the Council of Ministers and supervised by its military advisor office. Then, for concluding, since 2018, he is in charge of the promotion, implementation, and coordination of the network of the national members of European Copernicus Academy. So you see how important is this person is in front of you and who will give you these first lessons. So I'm very happy, Bernardo. Can I say Bernardo because we have been knowing since many years. I'm very happy to have you here and to give our students the opportunity of listening your speech. So Bernardo, thank you for being here and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much indeed. While I share my screen immediately, so, and after doing that, as an old dog, as we used to say in London, I start by warming up, warming my English up, and by thanking either both Maria and Marco for inviting me to participate in this PhD cycle for the second time. Now it is a PhD school, which is part of the PhD schools of Polytechnic Milan, which is quite an important achievement. And to ask me to give this introductory speech. And it is a challenge for me because, as you know, as I said, and Maria put on my shoulder a big burden, and now I have to demonstrate that I'm up to the level that she designed for me, and that's a big challenge for me as well. So let's start from the beginning. I wanted to thank, by the way, I wanted to thank also Maria Vittoria Castellani, who coordinates Copernicus Academy, National Copernicus Academy Network with me, and because she had a large part in to prepare the presentation that I leave with you. It's a long presentation, is plenty of information, and I will skip through it. And probably we don't see everything, but I leave it with you in order to allow you to get through it by yourself and just to deepen everything you think is interesting for you. As this is the main point. But let's start from the title. Copernicus Green Revolution or Copernicus for a Green Revolution for a sustainable development. And starting from this, let's go. Does it move? That's it, my dear. Oh, that's it. Okay. Let's start by facing the complexity of the relationship between climate change and socioeconomic processes. I've written down more or less everything I'm going to say because so there is a sort of text that you can follow, and this is just a good representation, just one of the good representation of the risk equation and risk for climate related impacts results again as an interaction climate-related hazards and wind vulnerability and exposure of human and natural systems. This is quite important. Every time we think about the risk equation, we think about a human system, but natural systems as well, they are exposed to this sort of risk. And the most important thing is what you have on your left side and the right side of this plot. I mean, in the right side, you have this socioeconomic processes, not only refer to the climate itself directly, but climate cycle itself directly, but also indirectly. Everything is socio-economic activity or is put up by our society as a climate or as an impact on climate cycle. So this is quite an important point. And then on the left side, you have a climate environment. I mean, let's say the climate aspect, which is shared by the anthropogenetic climate change and the natural variability, which is quite difficult to distinguish between the two. And so, starting from this point, we have to answer two questions two quite important questions. So the first question is what Maria and Marco put down is which has to be answered is in what sense and in which way Copernicus represents a paradigm for smart, sustainable, inclusive growth. This is quite Copernicus. Copernicus is a program, Earth observation program. What's the link between this and the smart, sustainable, inclusive growth? The second question is why and how Copernicus is linked to the Green Deal and to the sustainable development goals and in general prevention and mitigation across towards action towards climate change. I mean, these are two questions which are put up by the title in the title itself of the PhD cycle. Well, starting from these well-known pictures. I mean, at least the image on the left side. There is the fact that understanding and forecasting climate change are big challenges in themselves, and because climate is determined by a complex set of several variables like physical, chemical, biological, and interaction with atmosphere, hydrosphere, lithosphere. This is a definition of Altman in 1994, but this is not enough. We have to add something to that, because more challenging certainly is to identify, understand, measure, and possibly foresee the events that climate change determines or increases in magnitude and in frequency, along with the effects and the consequences that these events determine on the natural environmental resources, as well as on human society and activity. So there is a statement, close statement. So monitoring is absolutely necessary, and possibly it has to be done in real time. This is the challenge. And in 1998, we'll see later on, we'll start facing this challenge at European level as a sort of common challenge accepted by the Commission and the member states. So monitoring what? For example, terrestrial, but also atmosphere temperature as a sea temperature, as well as vegetation change, as well as drought and desertification evolution, and as well as soil erosion and flood events all over the world, and in small area, like the urban area, exactly, or several meteor events in urban flooding in a very small area, 10 kilometers by 10 kilometers, along the coastline and the northern part of Italy, in Liguria, but in other, all over the world, in other places, we have to face them with a very, very careful attitude and good tools to face it in a good way. So, so let's go through the reason and the history of operational Earth observation. Certainly, pursuing all these aims requires, as we have seen, a synergy of data collection, analytical methods, and simulation modeling, which are capable of capturing and processing data and elaborating information at a pace, this is very important, at a pace equal to a faster than the processes that lead to the manifestation of climate change. If you look at the last picture that I've shown, the last image about the urban flooding, well, the time scale is of minutes, not more than hours. Whereas if you look to the change, for example, about the coastline or the effects of the increasing temperature on, for example, the water resources, this is a time scale of 1 year, some month, or 1 year or some years. So the time scaling has to be very carefully watched and to be carefully taken in account. But in this context, certainly Earth observation, remote sensing, a geographic information system have found certainly good ground for developing and in a wide range of applications. And for example, in analysis of an analysis approach and an adaptation solution as well. Anyway, the resulting event, risk and damage management in Copernicus, certainly represent the most advanced extended integrated development and application of them. This is quite an important point. So it's not just to see the evolution of climate, it's not just to see the events, it's not just to describe or foresee the event, but is the most important thing is to understand the consequences or the risk that the events can carry out in this context. So let's start with a brief outline of the origin and history of the operational observation. Well, funny enough, last year I've underlined this fact that the history starts a long time ago, a quite very long time ago. It starts from the measurements of meridian, which has been a pain in the neck for several people for ages, and we have to go to that period and to the metric cartography. And on the other hand, we have to go to discovery of the link between electromagnetic waves and their spectrum and optics. These are two starting points. And the other starting points are the maps. I've been showing maps all time. And actually maps were the first instrument to magically represent the surface, but also what was present on it, and systematically, let's say, monitor its evolution and all the anomalous situation as well, but in a scale which is the scale to be able to prepare to produce such a map, such a bunch of maps. In this case, as I presented this, I'm very fond of it because this is the evolution starting from 1840 till 1940 of my town. I was born there. It's Genoa, in the northern part of Italy, in Liguria, and there is a red circle there. The red circle represents a place where the building where my flat was and where I used to live is still now. But in 1840, there wasn't any building at all there, neither in 1890, and probably it started being built just before the 1940 in that. And so you can see the urban sprawl during this secular period. And you see that that place is at the confluence of two famous torrents, very small. One is Bisagno and the other is Ferraggiano. The hydrological basin of Ferraggiano is 5 square kilometers. So it's a very small, tiny basin, but it's able to produce very strong and very damaging flash floods and as well as Bisagno. So probably if we know better how to represent one side the spatial distribution of let's say the urban evolution, and the other side, if you at that time in 1940 we were able like now to understand better the hazard coming from the flash flooding of Bisagno and the flash flooding particularly of Ferraggiano, probably, maybe, but we don't know about that. Probably they would have decided to not to build that building. So that's quite important from the civil protection point of view. But this is just a short, funny list of the technological evolution which led or which made possible the the advent of the Earth observation is just the principle linking the electromagnetic waves to optics, is the photographic photographic technology, the first approach to the photographic products. And funny enough, the first application of all this was by a fellow, and this fellow was able just to build on it a enterprise, a private enterprise, to sell pictures. And this is Nadar, which is funny enough, is a hot air balloon. He was a photography, Nadar photography. He was from Paris, and he was able just to take pictures of Paris itself, but also look of people, just to show that they had been on air with him, and so on. And he was just, let's say, the first real enterprise able to make add value from the Earth observation, not from the ground, but from air. The second spot is just the evolution before the First War. I mean, this is quite important. Funny enough, now we have been using, for example, RGB images. We don't know where they come from. They come from, I mean, they've been invented, we can say that, or worked out in 1870, and along with the color vision. Funny enough, it's not very far away from now. And then from them, we started to apply in a systematic way these technologies to the Earth observation. But there was one point: how to go up in the atmosphere, at least in the atmosphere, and then take picture. In which way? Well, Nadar used a not air balloon, and in 1914, this is a funny story, but it's quite important. A fellow called Julius Neubronner. I've never been able to pronounce his name, his family name, Neubronner, had this idea to put a camera and use the pigeons as pigeon carriers. And this was the first idea to use aerial picture for something which wasn't really for civil purposes, was for military purposes. And then, since then, look at that, I mean, that's funny. From 1915 to 1945, the aerial photos and photogrammetry had been applied for military purposes, but eventually, at the very end, the last years, they started being applied to, for example, agriculture, for energy supply, other things like that. So it was just done at the horizon for a new Earth observation from atmosphere. And then we move from the atmosphere and we enter the space. And this happened in 1972. When the first satellite of the Landsat constellation was launched, put into orbit, and made operational. Since then, I have to say that aerospace technologies have contributed significantly to the development of in remote sensing and Earth observation. And let's talk a bit about this Landsat 1. Landsat 1 was actually was launched and put in orbit and made operational because of, under, let's say, the cover of civil purposes, civil purposes application. I mean, that's it. It was just put in orbit to measure, identify the production in agriculture, but in a particular production. So it was linked to the intelligence, to the military targets and so on, because the area which was under observation was the area of the country of the Soviet blocs, the Soviet bloc. So this was just a funny beginning, because if you look at the application of Landsat, actually the Landsat constellation, not by itself, not by the technology alone, but through new methods of processing the data they collect, and by interpreting this data and transforming them into information, allowed the scientific community, but not only, as we could see, not only civil communities as well, to use it in a more versatile way, more than what we imagined before. So, for example, in environmental field, this is an example of monitoring the harmful effect caused by the less than sustainable water management of Aral Lake between 1977 and 2010. It's quite impressive. And I could show several other examples. This is just to give you a flavor about how many satellites, as observation satellites, we have in the space now, and there are quite a lot, as you can see. I underline the fact that the 3rd of April 2014 was launched the first satellite. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. Satellite of the Copernicus Sentinel constellation. So more or less, these are about more than 300 now, more than 300. And the fact that they allowed us to, let's say, to try to measure through the data they acquire several different variables like temperature, biological activity in the oceans, land moisture, coastal zones, algal blooms, meteorological phenomena, effect on so many, and we can end the list with air pollution, but we can put more than them. Great. So we are happy about that, but easy to say, but difficult to do. Easy to say. This is something quite important because, well, yeah, you have the data and you can do everything you want. It's not so easy. It's not so easy at all. And you can read here why. And in this, in order to use not only the satellite, the data provided by the satellite platforms, but also the data provided by in situ devices, we needed several things, and I have to say that cartography and geo-representation, geo-representation of the distribution of the information that we can get from these sources is one of the most important things that we have to take in account. So this is the let's say the evolution, and I like very much to show these pictures. You see, we start from what we call let's say classical maps, cartographic maps, and the cartographic maps that I've shown at the beginning describe a rural area reclaimed from the let's say the diversion of the mouth of Volturno River, and but eventually this rural area has been squatted by an unexpected population. And the point from the civil protection point of view is how many people are there now. At the beginning, there were olive trees, let's say cabbages, the other things like that, vegetables, the other things like that. Now we have people, families. We have strange buildings. How we can define the type of building? So if we zoom in, we are able just to distinguish the different type of buildings which are there and still there. And you can see there are huts as well as more or less buildings. And we are able to, from the typology of this building, we are able just to define that how many families are there, and we are able just to have a sort of assessment of the number of inhabitants of that area. So this is an important thing, because if I have a flooding event because the bank breaks in suddenly, I have to face the problem to take away 159 family from that area, which is not an easy job from the point of view, from the civil protection point of view. Ben, well, so starting from this, let's say, preview, I try to very quickly to go through what has been what we call the European and national space policy and economics. You are able to remember what I said about Nadar. He was able just to put us up an enterprise, just taking picture from an hot air balloon, and more or less this long story that I'm going to show very shortly is has followed this starting idea, this original and let's say first step in this direction. So this story, the story of Copernicus nowadays, starts a long time ago. Starts from Baveno Manifesto. Baveno Manifesto. Before that, I more or less I've told you about that. The space economy was mainly, I have to say, uniquely in primary a space component economy. So launchers, satellites, telecommunication, and ground segment, and the two communities which were interested in that economy were mainly the technology enterprises and the research community, the scientific community, and the security community or defense, more or less, from that. But so, starting from that in 1999, there was a sort of basic thought. And the Baveno Manifesto calls the European Commission and ESA for a long-term commitment to set up a global observation capability. And the reason was just to have a look and to involve in this process other community like other fields like the fields of environment and the environment community, or agriculture and the agriculture community, the national safety and security, and in particular civil protection and civil protection field and civil protection community. And for developing European skills and new technology, new skills and new technology. Was the 1998. And from that idea started what we call the service component economy. So GMS, or GNMS, if you want to say, was devoted to the development and management of platform capable of producing informative level information and data, but also services to handle and to use this data, to produce, to handle and use this informative data and information. And starting from that, after you can see the evolution was from GMS, the service component economy went on, and in 2014 was there was a new regulation and a new name for GMES, but it was just GMES was the father, and the son was Copernicus, and the event Copernicus was linked to the fact that the first GMS was devoted to the institutional user needs and requirements, whereas Copernicus is devoted to the public and private market as well. So there is an amplification of the effects of such investment that we see it was and still it is quite huge. So nowadays, just few months ago, we have a new regulation. So this is the third step, starting from the first step of GMS, going to the second step of first Copernicus age to the second Copernicus age. The second Copernicus age is led by an European Union space program, an European Union space regulation, which gathered together all the program which are devoted and dedicated to the space, straight to the space, or something, other programs which make use of the space. This is the case of Copernicus, which is an operational autonomous user-driven civil Earth observation system. But we have also Galileo, which is the closest one. So it is an autonomous civil global navigation satellite system. And we have EGNOS, which is the regional version of Galileo. And after we have a GovSatcom, which is a satellite communication service program, but the most spatial, if you want, the most space, let's say, the most linked to the space, not deep space, actually is rubbish, is the SSA, aimed to survey and tracking space objects, useless space objects, and space weather as well. So we are going, and we should put here also the deep space exploration, which is another part of this program, but is not linked to this regulation. And all these programs are components of the European space, the European Union space program, and they are led by a committee, and a committee is supported by a user forum. All this program, but in particular Copernicus, which was the first, I mean, GMS for the first, which was the governance, whose governance was made by a committee and a user forum in which the member state and the commission are fully represented. We'll see that in a few minutes. Anyway, so you can see that Copernicus, as Professor Gianinato said, is a strategic Earth observation program of the community, or the Union actually, the European Union, not only the European Union, and it is the first in the world in terms of size of an investment. I mean, the investments in the past and still now are pretty huge. The European Parliament has decided to invest since the 2014 and towards the 2027 more than 10 billion euros and then before GMS has received more or less 5 billion of euros. So, and what Copernicus, GMS has started doing that, and Copernicus has consolidated this process. It is able now, it is able to produce more than 600, we are close to 800 service, 800 products, informative products, which are offered free of charge, open free of charge, coming from more or less six basic core services. We'll see that in a few minutes. And the most impressive thing is that the volume of data, what I mean, the data coming from satellite platform and data coming from in situ and other data, and the information produced. The volume of this it is exceeding, and probably it has exceeded the 30 petabytes for quarter, which means well, I'm unable to transform that. Is more or less 300 billions of more or less 300 billions of bytes a day, more or less, something like that. In this, for this, it is the third largest provider of data information in the world. What are the specific objectives or targets or aims of Copernicus, which are again stated by the European regulation? Well, look, I mean, there are some key words here, very important. The objective of Copernicus should be to deliver accurate and reliable Earth observation, data, information, and services. Not the data, not the data and information. Data, information, and services. And in order to, if you want, to support the Union and member states' policies in action based on user requirements. And this is another key word: user requirements. User, I should, if I had been part of the people who wrote this regulation, I should have put inside user needs and requirements, because firstly you have to identify the needs, and after you identify the requirements of the needs. And in order to attain these objectives, CODE should ensure an autonomous access to the environmental knowledge and key technologies for Earth observation, careful, and geoinformation services. So in Copernicus, there is Earth observation and geoinformation services. So there is inside remote sensing, there is geomatic, there is the geoinformation. So Copernicus is the highest synthesis of these different fields which had been taken together and put together and melted in this big, huge program. They support to achieve independent again. So we must be independent from USA, from Germany, from United, from Japan, from India, from China, from everything. In the field of environment, climate change, maritime, agriculture, rural development, preservation, cultural heritage, civil protection, land infrastructure, monitoring, security, as well as digital economy. And I have to say economy as it is, economy from the large point of view, and human health as well, which is linked to all these sort of things. So Copernicus is made by three different, let's say, components. The first component is in the space component, which is, well, we'll see that after a while. The second component is the in situ data. I should say in situ data and information, which is an important thing. And the third one, the most important one, which is the melting point of everything, is the Copernicus services. They are able to feed downstream what we call the downstream services, and the downstream services are the Copernicus economy. So the upstream, let's say not the upstream, the first part, the first part is as the major objective, just to be able to feed the possibility for the institutions, as well as from the market, to develop services downstream, and develop services, not Earth observation services only, but all sorts of services useful for the single user to reach their own targets. That's quite important. So users are the main point of everything, and users has to be taught how to use, to be informed and taught how to use these possibilities. And this is called user uptake. So the process is starting from data, developing services and information, and developing then added value services and applications. This is quite an important way. So if you expand, if you blow up this view, we have the upstream part, which is an observation part, which is not made by only by the space component, but also in situ component. And after we have the let's say the mid part, which is made by 6 what we call core services, Copernicus core services. Core because Commission and state members decided together that are usable for all of them. So core means that they are not the best, but they are the most useful for everybody. So the first one was, let me say, emergency, land, marine. I'm telling you, as they came in operation, atmosphere and climate change. And the first one was the original one, was security. The security is something that you can't see because as it is not open, is still free of charge for the governments, but is dedicated to the government's policies in the field of security, immigration, borders, problems, and so on. The Copernicus has the new regulations say that the users have to be gathering 2 big communities. The Copernicus core users, which are the union institution and body at the European, national, and regional level. They are all the others. I'm sorry, but there is also the research and educational community, along with commercial, private bodies, charity, non-governmental, and international communities, organizations, and then community, are all together in other Copernicus users. The difference is that the Copernicus core user are the users which are in charge of drive and lead together through the representative of the member states, through the representative of the member states, along with the European Commission, the program. So we can say the user-driven and needs-based approach is linked more to the Copernicus core users than the other Copernicus users. But the Copernicus core user must take in account the needs, requirements, the ideas, the ambitions of the other Copernicus user as well. Just to give you, to all of you, the dimension of this community, just to a flavor, this is in Italian, but I mean, you can understand that quite well. This is just the community of university and research. But if you look at the agriculture community as a system of industrial, commercial, productive enterprises, it looks really huge and goes down to the field production and to the rural population and the rural single enterprise. Therefore, we are more or less at the end of this let's say, institutional part, which is pretty heavy. But I think that the researchers as well as professional have to know in which world, in which context they act. They carry on their own research. They carry on their own professional advices to the end user. So this is research for the end user and advices for the end user. So they have to know that there is a legal framework in which is not just a research program or just a program financed by some European funds to build something. It's just a legal framework in which this idea has been built, and now it is still fed by the financial willingness of the parliament, which is quite an important point of view. Without the money decided by the parliament, there is no Copernicus, there is no space program, there is nothing. So The three components of Copernicus are the space one are entrusted to some bodies or entities. Space, as it has been entrusted, as still it is entrusted to ESA, the European Space Agency, but also the EMSAT. I always listen people say ESA, Copernicus is ESA, Copernicus, ESA. No, in ESA, in ESA, Copernicus is in charge, along with the EMSAT, of the space component. That's it. The services are in charge of other entities, like SMWF. Probably some of you know what ECMW is the European Center for Middle Range Weather Forecast, as well as probably the European Environmental Agency, which is in charge of the land. The SMW is in charge of the atmosphere, and also of the climate change, whereas the commission has taken by itself let's say not the governance, but I mean the leading point, along with the environmental European Agency of the of the land, as well as there is something missed there, along with the emergency. And at the end, the security is in charge of three agencies. Probably you know some of them. One of them is Frontex. You haven't listened to that in TV probably about immigration and other things like that. There is a SATCHEN, which is a satellite center in Spain, and EMSA, which is the European Maritime Security Agency. And so you can see it's pretty populated, this Copernicus. It's not that ESA. And in situ data are in charge of the member states. And the participation of the member state is regulated, is coordinated by the European Environmental Agency. So it's a quite complex system, as well as the committee at the European level has different configuration regarding to the different programs. So there is a Copernicus configuration, there is a Galileo configuration, there is a SSA configuration. At the national level, we have something similar. We have a national law which defines an interministerial committee which is in charge of the space, not only Earth observation. This is the space, let's say, policies and in general, and one partition on one of its activities is exactly regards the Earth observation partition. So the Earth observation, the committee is more or less exactly the same, the committee at the European level. There is a configuration in which there is a configuration for Earth observation. In a configuration Earth observation, there is the most important structure in the governance architecture, national architectural behavior, institutional behavior, sorry, which is the Copernicus National User Forum. The Copernicus User Forum, as in the Copernicus User Forum, you have a representative of national user communities, the national delegates in the Copernicus User Forum at the European level, and the Copernicus Committee at the European level. And you have other national delegation and into the EU institution and bodies. The most important thing is that Copernicus National User Forum, it is organized in consultation boards or working tables, but there are more consultation boards. There are three and two networks. The two networks are networks at the European level. The consultation boards of the Copernicus National User Forum are 9, if I'm not wrong. Yes, 9. And they are led by the ministry or the let's say the authority which is in charge of that community, of that matter in the community. So security is in charge of the Ministry of Defense, and infrastructure and transport is the Ministry of Infrastructure and Transport. Cultural heritage is the Ministry of Culture, and agriculture is the Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry, and so on. Environmental protection, coastal and dissemination are in charge of ISPRA. ISPRA, may say ISPRA and SPA, the National System for that, and so on. Emergency of the National Civil Protection Department. And then we have national boards. There are 4 national boards: the operational geology, the operational hydrology, the operational climatology, and the green net. And then there are 2 networks. The 2 networks are dedicated to the user uptake, and to the user, straightforward. One is the Copernicus Academy. I'm the coordinator of the national network of the Copernicus Academy, and the Copernicus Relay, which are the relay are let's say some hotspot for information and supporting information about Copernicus. It's a huge organization. It participated by more than 900 people. So you can see how they are shared in the different actions. What are the aims of the nation? This is very important. The primary aim is to share information and coordinate the decisions about the ongoing and foreseen activities of the Copernicus and user forum at the European level. So it's a place where the users are able to participate in producing, in fostering the national policy at the European level within Copernicus activities. The second aim is identify, this is very important, to identify and define the needs and requirements of the user at the national level for the various community. The third is let's say, to produce a national economy able to produce important core service at the national level, say downstream services which are important for all communities at the national level. Is an image, so a mirror of the Copernicus at the European level, at the national level. I end the first part here, if you don't mind, with the last idea. To produce needs and requirements is not an easy job. It's quite tiring job, very tough one, and it goes through about more or less 4 or 3 phases, if you want. The first one is the user needs and requirements collection. The second is the requirements, needs and requirement analysis and prioritization. And the third one is to develop, as we said, the operational services, downstream services linked to the Copernicus. This is a very heavy job. We carry on that through several surveys and questionnaires, but also meetings, other things. We end with a sort of map of all in different application domain, we identify different services with different priorities. And then through this sort of, let's say, statistical analysis, which is not an easy one, we link them together. It's just to show you the last synthetic form through which we have to go, and we end with some results. For example, the interest of the user community for different investigated application domain, or for example, if you plot that on the spectrum we get spectral ranges in which you find that are well covered by the actual technology and the actual services, or other ranges which are empty, and there we need some new technology and new services. So this is quite an heavy job, but it's quite important. I would like to stop here if you don't mind, my dear.
Thank you, Bernardo. We could have a small break, maybe 10 minutes. So we are back again, Bernardo.
Yes.
Uh,
Here I am.
I will give you.
Yeah.
Oh, oh,
You have to let me
okay, you can.
share.
Yes, you can share.
Yeah.
And you can go up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Can you see? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Great.
Perfect.
Great. Thank you very much indeed. Then, well, the first part was the toughest one, I think, the heaviest one. Now we'll go inside. We go inside the Copernicus components just shortly, because I mean, it's not my duty to go deeply inside, and but I mean, just to have a quick look at the three different components. So we start from in situ, the in situ data, which in situ, as Professor Gianinetto said at the beginning, are observation data which are made available by the member states from ground, sea, and airborne sensors. I had also some information, because some information come from for example, from OpenStreetMap, come from other sort of data. You have sort of let's say, inverted comma, in situ data coming from other environments, and they're really useful when you get inside Copernicus to improve, to enrich, to make more with more added value the information which come from Copernicus itself. So it's a quite big part. Nobody speaks about very much about that. But I mean, it's one of the most important part of this integrated Earth observation program. The use straightforward in Copernicus is validate and calibrate Copernicus products. We'll see in a few minutes. If you talk about, for example, some indices like NVI or others, well, you have to firstly calibrate what you get from, for example, from the satellites platform data, processed data, and from the simulation modeling. And then you can use them to validate let's say the continuous production of information and so on. Define then reliable information services. That's quite important, as I said at the beginning. The implementation are two tiers, more or less. It's not exact, this definition. This is from the Commission, but it's more than that. Some in situ data are tailored for each Copernicus service level. So there are some in situ data for the marine, some in situ data for the land, some in situ. It's not exactly like that, because the second tier is cross-cutting coordination. Which means that actually the in situ data work in a sort of, let's say, as it is written, is a sort of cross-cutting coordination. So they are not, more or less never, they are by themselves for a single Copernicus core service. Well, some example, you have some example. This is just a bit of example in situ data at the national level. This is the example about the meteo-hydropluviometric monitoring system, the national one. Think that we have more or less more than 10,000 real-time measurements station in our country, and part of this is made available for the ECMW directly for the meteorological services that ECMW is in charge, as well as the climatic services that is charged not in Copernicus just by itself, and other are made available for Copernicus. Let's say the major part of that is made available by the EONET network, which is led by the European Environmental Agency. Here we are, the Copernicus. Well, everybody, I get very angry about that sometimes, because I mean, sometimes people speaks about Copernicus as if Copernicus was simply a constellation of satellites. Constellation of satellites, as I said before, is very important. It's a primary importance, and I've been supporting that since the very beginning, since Sentinel-1. Sentinel-1 is very important because interferometric, it supports all the interferometric services in Copernicus, and not only at the national level as well, along with, we'll see briefly, another, which is a national constellation, which is Cosmos Chimeric constellation, and it was the first. It was launched in 1914, in 2004, in 2014, and this explain you that GMES and Copernicus started well before. They started well before it was launched, and at the beginning we use all the other constellation all around the world in order to build up the services, the emergency service in particular, management service in particular. Then we have a Sentinel-2, which is an optical, so you have the high resolution imaging, and not only the multispectral one. You can get also the very high resolution imaging. And Sentinel-3 is an optical, it's monitoring sea and land parameters. But Sentinel-4, you can read the specific target, each of them, each constellation, because each Sentinel is a Sentinel constellation. Sentinel-1 is a constellation of several satellites, as well as the others. So this is what at the moment we have nowadays. But I mean, in the future is already planned to have at least four missions. One another interferometric mission in band L instead of a band C and C. Another for hyperspectral one, another for CO2, about the greenhouse gases emission all over the world, CO2 equivalent, and that's it for air quality and climate change. And well, I cannot recall the last one, but there was another one. I cannot recall now. Okay, that's it. Along with that, we have the contributing missions, very important. Copernicus pays for these services. The contributing mission are member states missions, and we have, for example, Cosmos Chimeric, which is our constellation in X band, and there is the possibility. This contributing mission contribute to the core services primarily, but then they can use also the national level through an agreement with ESA to use them. It's not an easy job, but it could be done. That's it. So you can see there are 5 different type of missions. Anything probably in the future, during the cycle, you will be thought quite deeply inside this part, because Poli Milano has got a long tradition about interferometry and using the interferometric mission platform in order to develop services as well. So not only that, but I mean, the Milano school has been quite important in Italy, in Europe, and all over the world. But the most important thing for Copernicus, you have understood that these are the services, the core services. We have already explained that the core service is a sort of crunching, not only number crunching machine, but data, information, and number crunching machine. So you get inside all the simulation modeling platforms that you need. You get inside some methods and you apply some approaches to have to work out the information on, of the level that you need and so on. But eventually they create maps and maps. Again, maps. We see that maps is a keyword in this job, because anyway, let's go on and we see that after. So the core services are for the application domain. This is just an example. Now I have to expand this example. They for each application domains, each of the application domains that we have taken in account, there is more than one core services that has to be used in order to answer all the needs and requirements put forward by the users. So, for example, climate and energy, you have atmosphere, climate change, land, marine environment, and so on, and other things like that. This is important. The most important thing is that MES and still Copernicus are in charge of supporting the application of the European directive. So they are not just for straightforward for professional target or scientific target, but they have a specific institutional target. They help the member states to apply and to implement the sectorial European directive. The sectorial European directive, you find them in just a bit of them in the list listed in the matrix on the left. Let's go through the Copernicus services. We said that there are 6. Here you have the way to get into the web portals, or the web portal of each of them. It's very easy. It's free of charge. You don't have to pay anything. You apply just you apply for that, and you have a sort of you apply. Some of them are. This is a problem. Are quite different from each other, not so much, but a bit different from each other. Sometimes you need a password. Sometimes you decide your password. Sometimes you don't need anything. Well, let's start from one of the first 3. We call that time fast tracks services, which is the land one, the land monitoring service. As you can see, there are 3 sub-services: the global, and pan-European, and the local. We see just a few examples in a few minutes. And the land is one of the most important one. Is really cross-cutting all the others. You need information from land in the other services all time. And because, I mean, it's about the ecosystem, the biodiversity, agriculture, forestry, energy, natural resources, water, urban planning. And so we started from here. And then you have the Marine Environment Monitoring Service, which used to be called the Maritime Monitoring monitoring service, which is entrusted by Mercator. And here you have smaller and more sub-services about sea level, ocean salinity, ocean temperature, sea ice, wind, ocean currents, ocean color and biogeochemistry, and so on. Several sub-services. Think about it. This is, I mean, the marine environment has got more than 128 products, more or less, whereas the land is about 100. So it looks after the marine safety, marine resources, coastal marine environment, climate, and so on. But other indirect fields like transport, tourism, environment, pollution, energy, you see that they are cross-cutting each other. I mean, quite a lot. There is sort of fingering effect. The atmosphere monitoring services wasn't in among the first three fast tracks. Emergency was the third one, but it came just after the three fast tracks, and is about air quality. It has got several sub-services about air quality, climate forcing, ozone layer, and UV, solar radiation emission, and sulfur fluxes. Sorry. And I had another one, which is, as I said, greenhouse gases. It has already started to follow this matter, and in the next program it will be one of the focal point for the next program itself. Well, air quality, it's atmosphere, but it is air quality more than other things. It is important in health matters, in environment, in pollution, in climate, renewable energy. Benefit, I'm sorry, the Copernicus climate change was the last one, and it has become one of the most appreciated climate services. It has been used by all sort of kind of profile professionals, professors, researchers, students, national authorities, and so on. For example, just to give you an hint, the consortium of production for the production of, for example, of Barbera, Barbaresco, and so on, have some inside their teams. They have some climatologists who continuously use this climate change monitoring service in order to support their analysis for the future production and how to move the production, which is quite apparently it is a funny thing. It is not a funny thing. It is a basic thing. And then my, let's say, core services is Copernicus Emergency Management Service, which is entrusted by JRC. JRC is led directly by the Commission. And here again, something is missed. There are 4 sub-services: is risk recovery mapping, rapid mapping, early warning, and there is a drought observatory as well. It applies to disaster emergency situation, but also humanitarian crisis. And actually, he started from the rapid mapping sub-services, but it has enlarged their own content to risk recovery mapping, early warning, and so on. So in order to be able to cope with all the emergency cycle, which is something that now it works pretty well. The security service, the last one was the first one. You cannot access to this, but is again has got 3 sub-services about coastal monitoring, pre-frontier monitoring, reference mapping. I don't know why today my pronunciation goes mad. That's it. Maritime surveillance, an area of interest, vessel detection, vessel anomaly detection, tracking, vessel tracking and reporting, and the most important thing for the civil protection point of view is the last one. So it's plenty of very good products for to manage crisis situations as emergency situation. They are, let's say, they are focused on let's say, humanitarian, but more war scenarios. And but also they are very useful in civil protection. The situations that you have to face sometimes are really not similar, but equivalent, totally equivalent. Some camp analysis, for example, and a crisis situation map, critical infrastructure analysis, and so on. So this is the huge world of the services. And pity enough, people don't know this world enough. They can go inside. You have to go inside and play with them. You can use them freely, and you can find the limits of the products, as well as the good thing that you can solve, the good thing that they can lead at. So they lead to. So that's it, you see. Let's go through very quickly Copernicus Land Monitoring Service, just to give you an example. So you have a global, pan-European, and local. You can play, I'll show you something that we call the cold way to use Copernicus. It means that you don't have to do anything. You go inside and you use straightforward the information that Copernicus produces and makes you able to use. That's it. So you don't have to do anything. For example, well, just to give you an idea about the volume and the matters that the sub-services and the sub-services are able to put forward is, for example, a pan-European is a basic, as a basic, large, very wide product is the Korean, a very important one is land cover, which is about land cover, land use, and land transformation. And in order to work it out, you use the high resolution layers, which are about imperviousness, forest type, tree cover density, permanent grasslands, wetlands, water bodies. And we see some example of that. And then you go to the local. Local is a local, small scale. And you have a urban atlas, which is focused on some urban areas, but you can go down to the level of a public area inside the center of your town. But also riparian zone, which is just to look at the component. The component means also the green component, means the biological as well as the chemical, as well as the physical component in along the rivers and around the rivers. But that's it. Natura 2000, Nature 2000 is an important point, an important matter for environmental protection and habitat protection and biodiversity protection, as you know. You can improve that with using a parallel approach, just to show you. So you can improve what the sentinels are making available with for example, the contributing mission. In this case, it's Sentinel-1, improved by ISPRA. And Sentinel-1 data improved with the rapid eyes data and images Sentinel-2 images, data and images with rapid eyes, data and images. You can improve quite a lot your spatial resolution as well as the pace, the time pace that they have. I don't go. I don't go inside this this matter. I think that some colleagues in the future seminars will have a deep insight in this. So, but I mean, just to give you the feeling that you can go to a detail, such a detailed information that I have to say that you can see, for example, a dustbin in a street. I mean, something like that. I mean, that's it. I use that for that. I mean, this is why I'm telling you. So you go from 20 meter to 20 meter, which is a very nice resolution for several problems, to 5 meter by 5 meter. And then starting from the pan-European, you can use high resolution layers in order to identify natural, artificial, transformed areas, building, shopping center, car parks, road, others. And the most important thing is to distinguish between their uses at the metric scale. This is quite an important one. Is something which comes from the Corinne products, but also improved by the high resolution, very high resolution layer. So using that, ISPRA has been able to work out the annual report about land consumption. Land consumption is not just a transformation of land from natural to artificial, but has very strong consequences in through the connected to, for example, to the urban sprawl as well, to the hydrogeological risk growth, to agricultural productivity, to the reduction of agricultural productivity, the soil and landscape degradation. Landscape is quite important, but also biodiversity loss and lack of the ecosystem services. But also, land consumption is very important within the urban areas, because I mean, the small or large amount of land, vegetated land that we have in the urban areas, it's quite important to assure a good urban environment, the possibility to have a good management of the urban situation and the urban society. So just through a cold way, you can start from the high resolution layer, you go down and you are able to go from the European scale to a regional scale and down to the urban scale. That's the last one, the last image is just what we call the Riserva del Presidente near Rome, but also you can just track the kind, the extension, the type of vegetations that you have inside this park. Actually, it's not a park. This is actually heath. And you can layer very easily on that part also some indexes related to the vegetation and related to the state of vegetation. So like the normalized difference vegetation index and DVI, or the fraction of absorbed photosynthetically active solar radiation of PAR, and you combine that with other, for like soil water index, just to give you an example, and you get information. You get information about the status of the vegetation. You get information about the water contents of the ground, and so on. You don't pay anything. You don't have to do anything, but you can do something. You can improve that by what we call the hot way to use this. But also you can use this map. This map are not a static map. You can download the maps You can use them, but you need to know how to use a geographical information system like QGIS or a private one like ArcGIS or other things like that. And if you wanted to use the hot way, you have to know what are the bands, what are how to use the bands to build up the indices, and how to use so the basic remote sensing matter. So this is quite an important. This is a challenge because it's easy to use Copernicus, but it's not easy to use it deeply, at least at a sort of halfway from a very, very challenging level to a sort of normal level. So that's a quite important point. If you go, as I said, to the local, you can have the urban one, but you can have several things, like, for example, the riparian zone. Using this, the hot one and the cold one, mixing together, you are able just to have in view in some quite important matter linked to sustainable, for example, our sustainable society. For example, the quality of the habitats in urban area, and not only in urban area. If you are able to do that in urban area, you are able to do that everywhere. Or, for example, for carbon balance, a carbon cycle control and balance. It's the carbon storage index at municipal scale, but not only this. So you are able to work out several information. And again, this is ISPRA report. You are able to find out how much it cost to the society, the fact that we lose ecosystem services by, for example, soil consumption or soil transformation, for soil transformation of use of soil, not only soil consumption. So it's about 2 billions per year. This is the national level, not the European one. This is between, it has been tested between, it has been measured between the 2011 and 2019, 5 years, that's it. Just another example, very quick one. So if you use the local and the riparian zone, you are able just to have again a good information about the quality of the environment and the quality of the water, the quality of the vegetations in that area, which are along the rivers and or around the rivers. And that's just an example how to use in an integrated way all the cold and hot information. So this is extended to the Po Basin, and which is the largest basin, hydrological basin in Italy. And you are able just to layer all the information and to get, for example, you are able to identify the agriculture areas and the forest area. So the information about that. You are able to define the area which are potentially able to host some riparian features. You are able to define the conservation status of the water, on the vegetation, and the conservation status is also about the vigorousness of the vegetation. You use NVI, you'll see probably somebody is going to tell you what is NVI, and you see it's just the difference, the sum of two bands, the infrared, the near infrared, the red band of the electromagnetic spectrum, and that's it. So you can use the land information, the Copernicus land monitoring information, and along with the hot one, you use the straightforward the data processed and produced by produced by the satellite platform. This is the result. You can classify the riparian zone and the areas around such a riparian zone. That's it. So, what will be the future of Copernicus core service? Which is an important question. It's quite important for all of us. Well, I go straight forward, you can read through, but the basic idea is that any new regulation has defined firstly, as stated, firstly, the continuation and the sustainability of the Copernicus, either the space component, but more important is the services, and define three very large ensemble of services: the environmental monitoring, reporting, and compliance assurance services. And in a short time, we will have a new directive about the environmental compliance assurance, as well as the carbon cycle balance. And in this, some sub-core services, which is the atmosphere, we already have that, the marine environment monitoring, land monitoring, and the climate change monitoring. But inside these, you have new sub-services, like the coastal ecosystems, or like the cultural heritage sites, ground motion. Ground motion is quite important. I didn't want to speak about the ground motion, but it was one of my matter. It is strictly linked to the use of interferometry, Sentinel-1, Cosmos ChemMed, all the other platform, and use the permanent scatters approach, which is certainly, it has been born in the Politecnico di Milano. But also agriculture. Agriculture is a huge matter, but more than forest, but it has arrived in Copernicus as the latest one. Funny enough, because in agriculture, remote sensing has been used since a long time ago. But I mean, as you know, when you are so you think that you are so good in something, you never pay attention to other things. So you have to be careful about that. If you are very good in something, always think that there is something else that you don't know that could be improved what you know. So that's quite an important approach. Exactly like climate change, we are talking about CO2 and information of polar Arctic changes is not important for us, but it's very important for us, not for us directly, but it's very important for us in a global scale. And the change. Emergency management services, security service. How the Commission think that these new sub-services must be built up and must be set up? Well, just using the products of the existing services. For coastal management is just land and marine together with some new products, and they put together their own action, the two entrusted entities, and they manage the coastal management, like Polar and Arctic, like the support to Paris Agreement is a policy, because as we have seen, the policies, the European and national policies are one of the most important target of Copernicus. And then this is what we call coordination layers. The coordination layers are the European levels, but also at the national level. So we have to reorganize ourselves, my dear colleagues, and to think in this direction. We have several cross-cutting new services like cultural heritages or agriculture itself, but also urban management that they have to be melted together. They have to be born by melting together other products from other services. Not all these services, we don't have enough money to support the development the development of the products that the regulation is putting forward. So I think that probably we have enough money to develop the new product for the land monitoring service, but not, for example, for the coastal service. The coastal management has just few things, no more than that. And this rule is for all the other core services. And then I'm going to the end of my presentation. There were three hidden action, or as I said, components of Copernicus. Now in the new regulation, with the new regulation, they are not anymore hidden, but the new regulation state that they are actual actions of the programs, certainly for Copernicus, but also partially for all the other programs, components of the space program at the European level. The three hidden components are the simplification of the existing system of the heterogeneous platform, the promotion and development on an offer of downstream services, which is quite important. And the last one, from my point of view, the most important one, is the improvement of the user uptake. If we don't have users, we don't have program. We could have a lot of technology, we could have a lot of good research, but we don't have the program, and we are not able to meet the targets of the program itself. So the first action for solving the problem of having a heterogeneous platform was the DIAS, the Data and Information Access Service. You can read through this. It was a good start, but now there is a sort of, let's say, standing point. So we'll see what is going on in the future about this matter. So I'm not going to deepen inside this. And the second one is very important, but is not this the place to face it in a deeper way, is the promotion development of downstream services, which is the basic idea of what we call the national space economy, and what is linked to the PNRR program, as well as another program which came before, or which had come before the PNR came, which was the Mirror Copernicus, which was the space economy, national space economy, one of the pillars of the national space economy. And I wanted to just very shortly talk about the Copernicus user uptake. The second action. Let's say the user uptake is a structured process of informing potential end user about the usefulness of Copernicus, as well as educating and training them in the use of its products. It's a quite heavy and complex process, but I mean, quite exciting as well. This is certainly the most important action, which we started only for Copernicus, and now the new regulation expands to all the other components. And the point is that the new regulation sets up a specific set up a specific agency for these purposes, the USPA, and we don't know exactly what is going on about with the USPA as a reference for the user uptake. But mainly, just to give you an idea, what the new regulation has stated is the two European Copernicus, the two European networks, the Copernicus Academy and the Relay networks, are definitely stabilized, and they are definitely established by the regulation itself. So we are certain we must be certain that these two networks and at the European level, at the national level, are still on for the future. The Copernicus Academy, the academy is the Copernicus Academy aims are to inform, to educate, to train and coach and users and potential end users. So existing end users and potential end users. The relays differently aims are to inform, listen and assist public organization, professional entrepreneurs locally. So two different missions, two different bunch of aims, and then this is the Copernicus Academy. This is now the situation of the National Copernicus Academy. Is mainly made by university, other academic bodies, but also by private enterprises which have the mission of high education and training. Nowadays, it can show 43 members, collective members, which is a huge amount of people. You have a good representative here. This course, this cycle is a part of the activities of one of the Copernicus Academy member network at the European level, which is the Politecnico di Milano, which is represented as a focal point at the Geolab Poli Milano, but it is a network which links together, for example, la Bicocca, as well as Università di Pavia, Università di Milano. So it's a sort of sub-network of the national networks. This is true for all the other members of the national networks. And so more or less, since 2010 till now, we have been able to put up 130 events, and we have registered formally more than 1,500 participants, which is a huge amount. Like today, there are how many? 40, 60 participants. That's it. So there is 1,540 participants in these events. So this is just to show you where you are. These are all the kind of formats that we use to carry on the activities of the network, which are quite different for different aims, with different targets, with different aims, with different protagonisms and different characters, different profiles. So thank you very much. That's it.